Welcome, everybody, to Radiant Reflection Season 4. Josh, what episode is this?
Season 4. I believe this is 9.
Is it episode 9 already?
I believe so.
Wow, we haven't made much traction. I mean, some.
If I'm wrong, we'll just pretend like there's like some imaginary like lost episode out there somewhere.
Ooh,
like
that'd be fun.
In a year from now, we'll just record some random episode and we'll release it as lost episode.
The lost tracks
of Season 4.
What do they say? What's the language used in music when that happens? Like there's some
for lost tracks,
like hidden music or whatever.
You're talking about like the
B-side?
secret tracks,
secret tracks.
Like,
or B-side
that used to be
or
like
something.
You'd have bands that would after
End
the
of the
last
song.
track, like it just rolls for 10 minutes,
Yes.
and then there's
some nonsense comes
thing.
on. Yeah. Season 4, episode 9. We are drinking some coffee right now. I actually picked this up last week in Sarasota, Florida. I was working down there. And Josh, I had one of the best shots of espresso I've ever had in my life.
That's pretty.
I know. So it's a place called Perk, not to be confused with PERC, Perk Coffee, but PERQ Coffee. I guess they are the OGs in Sarasota for Third Wave. And he was pulling a Brazilian from Huck Roasters on a Slayer 200.
So they don't roast their own.
So good. So this particular coffee house did not roast their own coffee. They had Heart. They had Huck, and then they had what is in my pocket here, and I'm not going to unfold it because I'm afraid I'll see the notes.
Okay.
So, but what I do know is this is an Ethiopian. It's an Ethiopian, and it's from a roaster I've never heard of, but they had it on their shelf, and it was what was fresh. The Huck that they had, which I would have loved to get some of that, was a little bit dated. So what do you taste?
I'm saying pink grapefruit.
Yeah, I definitely am going to agree with you on particularly pink grapefruit, Josh. That is right. Lemon. There's a lemony tartness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, on the tongue. Ooh, there's what is that?
It's kind of grassy.
I think the lemon too.
Mm-hmm. Lemon and grapefruit for sure.
I don't know if I've got anything beyond that.
Listeners, viewers,
this is really good.
It's delicious coffee. Before we hit the record button, I was telling Josh this is a weird coffee bean. I should have kept a couple of the beans. It is microscopic small, like 1/3 the size of other beans. And I had to grind it so coarse compared to other coffee when I do drip or espresso. It took me, I'm sad to say, like 3 shots of wasted coffee to get it dialed. And it wasn't even quite right. It was still.
So the ones that didn't turn out, like, did you just like take a little sip and then give the rest to Ollie?
I could. He doesn't need it.
He's pretty mellow. He
yeah.
probably needs some caffeine to.
Last night, the 100 Tables people that came to our house, they liked Ollie. And I kept offering. I was like, you could take him home.
Take him with you.
Velma, this one lady that came to eat with us, she's taking pictures of him. I was like, he could be yours.
Low price of free.
Yeah. No, I love Ollie. For those who don't know, we have a French bulldog. He's 6 years old. His name is Oliver. He's a cantankerous fellow.
Dude, that's crazy that he's 6 already.
I know. Well, we just saw that picture that Patricia took when he was like maybe 8 weeks old when we were out at the Christmas tree place taking the staff picture.
Holy cow.
And Lisa was holding him and he was like just this, I mean, literally, he's like this big. But yeah.
That's wild.
I know.
Goes by fast.
Okay, so we're saying grapefruit and lemon.
Grapefruit and lemon.
All right, here we go. I'm going to unfold the bag. I'm going to tell you what we're drinking first. So this is a single origin, of course. This is from 3 Ships Coffee. 3 Ships Coffee. It's a Kabbalah natural micro lot, which that's pretty cool when you get a micro lot. Nero Nensebo drying station in Ethiopia. It's giving us all kinds of interesting things. Origin, batch number. Blueberry.
I didn't get blueberry.
No, definitely the citrus. Maybe they're wrong. We're probably right. Their Q grader was off. Black cherry, and I just don't get this, Josh. Tropical gummies. Does that mean there's like a gummy texture?
I mean, well,
what are they saying?
The mouthfeel. I can see that. Like, but I wonder what they would include in tropical. Here's the problem. That's too.
It's very generic.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, tropical. It's like, you know.
Well, technically, grapefruits and lemons grow in zone 7, which is technically tropical.
Oh, you know more about that than me.
We're zone 5 here. We can't grow oranges.
What's Texas? I remember some of the best grapefruit I've ever had was in Texas.
Texas is
like
zone
way
7.
South Texas.
Yeah, 7. That's zone 7. Zone 6 is like, Kentucky and Tennessee and that kind of stuff. But we are zone 5 here in the Midwest. Well, in the northern part of Indiana, southern part of Michigan. So, yeah, really good coffee here. I mean, the black cherry is there now that they've said it.
See, you know what's wild? I actually, as it's cooling down, I do think there's more of the blueberry.
Okay.
But again, maybe it's power suggestion. Like it could say that it tastes like dog crap on there, and all of a sudden I'd probably.
What about that dog crap taste?
I'd be like, you know what? Yeah. I'm picking that up now.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I mean, we just don't know, but it is good coffee. I made a cup of this last night for one of our guests for 100 tables. For those who don't know, this is like an initiative at the church to do like having people over for dinner that you are total strangers and you don't know where you're going and they don't know where they're going. They just know the address. But one of the guys, he owns a trucking company. His name is Mike. And he had to leave. He had to be in Crawfordsville, Indiana by 1 a.m. He basically said,
where's Crawfordsville?
Southern
I've never
Indiana.
Even heard of that. So.
Yeah, southern Indiana. And then he had to take this load to Gary, Indiana, and then come back. It was a load of steel.
Gary, Indiana,
Yes.
Gary, Indiana, Gary, Indiana.
He talked about the violence and crime in Chicago because that's where he drives quite a bit. But I'm thankful that I don't have to go there very often.
Yeah.
Every once in a while I catch a flight, but otherwise good riddance. I'm not a fan of Chicago.
Sure,
Sorry.
there are very lovely people in Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
And in Gary, Indiana.
I'm sure there are. Yes. All right, Josh, we're jumping into a pretty substantial section of the book. We're in section number 2, practicing the way, be with Jesus. And this is the become like Jesus. It's goal number 2 of practicing the way. And we don't want to miss this. We always say this same thing. This will be the 9th time we've said it. Our goal for you as you're watching Radiant Reflections this season 4, Josh and our hope is that you will have at least getting started a rule of life. Okay. And remember, this is just a mental understanding. Sometimes people write it down of things that you are committed to in order to live in a way that you can be the most fruitful for God's kingdom so that you can personally experience in Jesus in the most intimate ways that possibly you could. So, examples of things that are on a rule of life would be, I'll just share one of the things on my rule of life. I try to take a minimum of 2 walks per week with my wife, Lisa. It's just walking. So we're moving our bodies and we are talking as we go. And so we try to do that. That is literally written on my rule of life. It could be something as simple as that. Josh, what's an example of something on your rule of life? Just one thing.
So some of it is just the time in Scripture. You go to like you've referenced multiple times that the 4 times a week there seems to be a correlation.
Yeah.
With that, so it's like, hey, that's to use Kevin Meyer's language, an irreducible minimum. Now the goal is
7.
7.
Yeah.
But you know what? There's
life.
Some days. Some days.
Yep.
Yeah, it doesn't look the same as others, but
yeah.
So that would be one of the ones.
I think it was Mike Tyson who said everybody has an idea about what they're going to do in a fight until they get punched in the face. Right? Life sometimes punches us in the face, and our schedules and calendars and the ways we want things to go, they don't always go that way.
I love it.
All right, well, let's jump in on page 66.
Dun dun dun. The skull.
Okay.
The skull. I say, are you showing? I thought of you immediately. Okay.
Listeners, viewers, should I do it? Let's see if I go to this one. I don't know if you can see that. It is a very, very lifelike skull tattooed on my arm. And it is directly related to what we're about to talk about.
But you had this before he wrote about that.
I did have this before he wrote about it, but it wasn't before I read about the monastic practice.
Yeah.
Yes. So Yeah, interesting. Keep what's sticking out?
We're all going to die. That's 100% mortality rate. Well,
Yes.
okay. There's one exception over the course of history.
Yes.
Well, there's a couple of exceptions.
Yes. There's two exceptions that I'm aware of.
So
Enoch.
well, three, because Jesus. Well, I mean, he died, but he
Jesus.
didn't stay dead.
Right.
Then you have Enoch and you have Elijah.
Elijah. That's true because he was taken up.
He was just taken up.
Yeah.
So
The chariots of fire.
dude, I've always wondered. Sorry, I don't want to get sideways. Like Enoch, we read so little of him in Genesis.
Right.
But I mean, what did his life look like? To where it's basically like he walked with God and then
He was no more.
he just wasn't like what? Like what were his practices? Like, what was day-to-day life for Enoch? Because that's always just been every time I read it, I was like, I wanna.
Yeah.
Although maybe it's intentional. Maybe we don't get more because then we'd all try to model our lives after Enoch when the point of Scripture is to get us to model our lives after Jesus.
Yeah, I know Brother Lawrence, he would say that he could no more differentiate between when he was washing dishes when he was at the Eucharistic table. Like the presence of God was, which for those who don't know his book called Practicing the Presence, he didn't feel the difference of God's presence in those two very different scenarios. Washing dishes in a monastery or actually taking communion is really interesting. I mean, that sentence there from St. Benedict on 66, day by day, remind yourself that you're going to die. And that really, that's why I got this tattoo. This skull was as a reminder. And the monastic thing, we'll just tell you what it was. So in some monasteries, they had their own graveyards. And when a brother would die, they would bury him. And later on, after a long, long process of time, obviously, when the body was fully decomposed, they would go back and they would dig up the skull of their brother, the monk who had practiced and lived in that monastery. And there was always, not always, but sometimes a literal skull on the dinner table in these monasteries. And it was literally a reason for all of them as they're eating, like, time is short. What does Paul say? Seize the day. That's not really what he said.
That's right. Make the most of every opportunity. Make the most of opportunity.
Right. See, carpe diem is the Greek parallel, we'll say.
Which Pastor Brandon would love, because that word, their opportunity, is the Greek word kairos.
Yes. Oh,
so
yes.
you can talk to Pastor Brandon about kairos. But in Greek culture, kairos was one of their gods, and he was sometimes depicted as a man who had like a reverse mullet. He had long hair in the front and he was bald on the back. The idea being,
I had a haircut like that when I was a kid.
That when an opportunity is in front of you, you can grab a hold of it. But once it's passed, there's nothing to grab onto. So when Paul says make the most of every opportunity, he kind of plays into some of the Greek culture right there with kairos. But.
Interesting. I think the point too, like it's the understanding that mortality is something we need to reckon with, and that should inform our daily lives.
Well, which is so countercultural because we live in a culture that is so, and maybe cultures have been like this forever. I don't know, but like we live in a culture that's so against aging.
Longevity.
We have so many things that are like, oh, like put this crap on your face and then you won't wrinkle. Or do this and like it's gonna refurb up your skin or you know do these things.
Or take a shot of a botulism, which is what Botox is. A literal it's a bacteria, right?
Which
changes like makes your lips fuller or it pulls up the I don't know.
Well, and here's the thing. I don't know, maybe I was thinking on this, but this just came to mind in the last couple of days. I was like, and I know beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but that's how, sorry, this is like totally sideways. For some reason, I'm shaving my head. And this gets me thinking of Bruce Willis.
Okay.
Bruce Willis.
Die Hard.
Shaved head. You know, at one point, he's married to Demi Moore.
Yes.
Who was a very
beautiful woman.
Very beautiful woman.
Yes.
But she has had some plastic surgery done. And I'm like, why would you do that? Like you looked really good before, who again, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, but I'm like, who is, I think I have, as of yet, to see a celebrity that gets some form of plastic surgery that actually improves their appearance.
Yeah.
Usually you're like, what happened to your face?
Yeah, it looks crazy.
This is not a natural look.
Josh,
I don't know. Sorry.
Well, it's funny you say that because I text Lisa last week when I was in Florida and I was at the local mall. It's very, very affluent and fancy area of Florida called Lakewood Ranch. It's close to Sarasota, like 20 minutes. And you're just walking around this mall and it's so many people with plastic surgery. And it's so obvious, it's like their face is pulled back so tight. Like it's just, yeah.
I don't get it.
I think a lot of it, if I had to guess, I think it's probably related to concepts of fertility. So youth equals the ability to produce children, and children help build wealth. If you look at ancient culture, that would be my guess, right? Because obviously when there comes, I don't know, men can procreate till they die, right? Like,
outside of some
functionality,
sort of pathology,
right?
Or something like that. Yeah.
But women go through the perimenopause and then the regular menopause that.
But I've even
process.
seen like dude celebrities.
Oh, I know,
and it's like,
well, I mean, Michael Jackson. Come on, come on.
That's low hanging fruit. But I mean, there are others, and you're like, what? And it's always the face.
Yeah,
it's always the face.
Another theory I have about the rejection of death and mortality is that it's related in a rejection of God, because the younger I stay, the more time I have on earth, the less time that I'm going to have to face this deity who will judge me, who will determine my eternal state.
But here's the thing, like all of it is an illusion. None of that actually staves off the dying process.
No, it doesn't. Well, Kurzweil pianos?
Yeah.
Ray Kurzweil, you need to watch this documentary. It is unbelievable. Ray Kurzweil is a scientist, and he created some synthesizers, the Kurzweil piano.
Pretty sure we had, like the church I was at as a teenager, one of our guys played a Kurzweil.
They're great. They're great pianos, great keyboards. Ray Kurzweil has some really, really odd ideas about death and dying. In fact, he lost his father he was really, really close to, and he had his father cryogenically frozen. And he believes that science is going to eventually be able to either clone his father completely, and he'll have his father back. It's a grief mechanism, right? And or cure him and he'll be fine. So his father right now is in a cryogenic state.
So he's like the real life Mr. Freeze from Batman.
Kurzweil, there's a documentary out about this guy. It's really, really fascinating. He's one of the first innovators in the AI world. Ray Kurzweil was. Brilliant man, just absolutely brilliant. We're only on page 66. We better get
well, but I mean, it all highlights what he's talking about.
At the bottom, he says, "Don't waste your time on triviality. Remember what matters. Life is fleeting and precious. Don't squander it. Keep your death before your eyes. Hold eternity in your heart." That's Saint Benedict. Benedict was urging the monks to be joyfully present to the miracle of daily life.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
There's one of my all-time favorite fantasy series is Dragonlance, but there's a character in these. His name is Raistlin. He's a magic using character, so probably just lost half the people out there. That's all right. But through some various trials that he undergoes, he's cursed, and he is given these hourglass eyes, and he sees all things dying. So as he views the world around him, all he sees is death and decay, because he sees
the time remaining.
He sees things, going through time as he looks at it. So I don't know. We would probably look at that as a curse, but maybe we would actually do well.
Yeah. Life is fleeting. Don't miss it.
Yeah.
Right. What else is sticking out, Josh? Page 67.
I just like at the bottom. It's there because in any age, but especially in ours, it's incredibly easy to waste our lives. Amusing ourselves to death, as the social critic Neil Postman called it, has never been more convenient. Yeah, I mean, it really is. We have so many things, and most of them are entertainment based. No, it's not wrong to, engage in some form of entertainment. But I mean, I think if we go back to what we've talked about before, I'm sure we'll talk about it multiple times yet. This audit, like, how much time am I spending on entertainment? So,
and where's the balance between enjoying entertainment and wasting time?
Yeah.
Right. The Ronald Rolheiser quote there at the top on 68, Ronald Rolheiser says, we're distracting ourselves into spiritual oblivion. So sometimes the things that we are doing in order to be entertained, they're actually doing the exact opposite. So we're being entertained in our flesh, but our spirit is actually being pulled away from the things of God, maybe by loss of time, maybe by the actual content itself. Lisa and I were talking just the other day. It's like, and JMC said this many times, like, I can't remember a time where I've spent time scrolling on YouTube, on Instagram or Facebook, and went away feeling like, I feel closer to Jesus. I'm so satisfied with the things that I have. I don't want to buy anything. Like, it's just not how it works. What else on 68, Josh?
Well,
I see you've got the David Brooks stuff highlighted as well.
He just says, I've got towards that top, right before the Rolheiser quote, Western culture is arguably built around the denial of death, which we just talked about, through the coping mechanism of distraction. And I just didn't know, like, it's our refusal to grow up. We talked about plastic surgery, but you look at, and I don't have, this is anecdotal. This is not, I don't have actual data to say this, but it seems like millennials are a terribly, and I'm among this, terribly nostalgic generation. Now, I mean, people joke like, oh, everything comes back around. And maybe that's true. But I mean, I look around and I'm like, the amount of like mid-90s pop culture things that have resurfaced.
Right.
Like, I mean, to the extent of, one of the last episodes we talked about Nintendo. Like, I mean, I'll still get on my Nintendo Switch, and what am I doing on the Nintendo Switch? I'm playing a lot of the games that I played when I was a kid.
Mario Brothers.
Like, I want to still, like give me that Super Mario Brothers 3.
Heck yeah.
So I wonder if in some way that nostalgia is a non-surgical way that we try to avoid death. We want to stay in our childhood. I mean, and unfortunately, you see this play out in all sorts of ways, kind of that refusal to grow up, sometimes in ways
failure to launch.
Yeah, I mean, ways that are really harmful to both the individual and the people around them.
Yeah.
As a 40-year-old man, if I'm only ever, I'm 41 now, but I mean, if I'm only ever hanging out playing video games, because that's, I mean, and that happens. These people are out there. We're refusing to let go of childhood and
Paul says, when I was a child, I spoke as a child and I acted like a child, but when I became an adult, I put away childish ways. I think there's a lot of that needs to happen, not only in the church, but just the world itself. That middle section with David Brooks. Resume virtues are what we talk about in life, where we work, what we've accomplished, what accolades we've received, and so on. Eulogy virtues are what others talk about when we die, namely the people we were, the fabric that made up our character and the relationships that defined our sojourn on this earth. To remind yourself that you are going to die is to remind yourself to live for your eulogy, not your resume. It's to not waste your precious fleeting time here, but to focus on what matters in the grand scheme of eternity, becoming a person of love through union with Jesus. Josh, what do you see maybe as one of the bigger markers between resume and eulogy virtues? Like how?
Well, the resume ones, I mean, those are primarily, if we boil it down, that's probably eventually about what I've accomplished for me. Yeah, I mean,
or even this existence.
Right, but I mean, I'm gonna go after this. Why? Well, because I want to do this, because then this gives me this, or this allows me to whatever. And it's self-centered. Those eulogy things, though, are, it highlights the impact that I had on other people. Which, I mean, the way of Jesus is others focused. Yeah. So I mean, we get to see it, right? You you go to a funeral, like, hey, who wants to say something nice about so and so? And sometimes there's nothing nice to say about somebody, because all they did was build that portfolio.
Yeah, definitely. Anything else on 68, Josh?
I think we're good.
69. Continuing to talk about becoming like him, becoming like Jesus.
Yeah, down towards the bottom, just again, and this is a theme we've hit on before. Spiritual formation isn't a Christian thing, it's a human thing. Or like we are in a constant state of change.
Yeah, to be human is to change.
Yeah, we don't stay static. The tricky part is we often change in small ways that are imperceptible to where we don't even think about it as changing. We gradually morph into this other thing, but by the time we're this other thing, we've taken so many baby steps, we don't even pay attention. And that can go in good directions, that can go in not so great directions.
I think that's the power of God through the disciplines and practices. You know, these are these decisions that we can make on a daily basis based on a rule of life that over time change us into the person that we actually really want to be. You know, they avail us to the power of God. They aren't the power of God. They don't change us, but they put us into the presence of God, which then changes us. I did like that at the bottom, and I said it, but I should give the quote as it should be. 69, to be human is to change constantly. And that's back to that 40-year-old person living in their parents' basement playing video games. And if that's you, just make a decision, do something different now.
And it's not that you can't play video games as a 40-year-old, but I mean, if that's the keystone of your life.
Yeah. Yeah. How about page 70, Josh? I love the top there.
Read it.
The question isn't, are you being formed? It's who or what are you being formed into? Josh, I think the denial of death is directly related to that ignorance, right? As we deny the fact that we're mortal, we also deny the fact that we are being formed. And so it's just happening to us. Like we're just bystanders, right? Life is passing us by and we're being formed and we're becoming people we don't really want to become. And Jesus certainly doesn't want us to become. Yeah.
No. Yeah, that next paragraph, who we are, the good, the bad, and the ugly, is all a result of spiritual formation.
Spiritual formation is not Christian.
No.
It's not even religious.
Because we're all spiritual. I mean,
whether we follow Jesus or not.
Atheists are spiritual.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like that's part of their being. They can't. Their cognitive disagreements don't change their nature. So,
yeah.
I'll just read that next paragraph. Spiritual formation happens to everyone, whether they are into it or not. Mother Teresa was a product of spiritual formation, and so was Hitler. Gandhi was spiritually formed, as was Chairman Mao. Same with Michelle Obama, Lady Gaga, Brene Brown, or Vladimir Zelensky. Their spirits have been formed over a long period of time through a complex alchemy. I love that he uses that word, alchemy. I like that. Of genetic inheritance, family patterns, childhood wounds, education, habits, decisions, relationships, inner orientations, attitudes, environments, responses to said environments, and more.
I think you could take each of those things and spend a year just thinking about them.
Yes.
But ultimately, maybe listeners, viewers, that's a good place to camp on page 70 there and ask yourself, how have I actually been formed?
Which it's
what am I battling?
I haven't, and maybe we've referenced it on here. It's Scazzero who does like the genograms, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Do you guys do those in the overflow cohort?
We don't yet.
Okay.
It's interesting you talk about that because that's something I called my mom the other day and was just asking some questions, like I would say family genome kind of things, something that I had forgotten, but it reminded me was I was baptized into the Catholic Church as an infant.
Really?
Yeah. My parents, as new believers in Jesus, I didn't either. Well, I knew it, but I'd forgotten it. But it's been a really interesting thing because I heard Rich Velotis, he has a picture of his baptism as a Christian that he framed and it's in his office and he always looks at it. You probably remember, he said this at Practicing the Way at the conference. He talked about having this picture and he'd look at it and it reminded him that I'm dead in Christ and I'm alive in Christ. And I, as I was thinking about my family of origin and my history, I was thinking, I don't know what I think about infant baptism. Like, I don't know, but what I do know is that's when my faith journey started. Something happened there because God honored that, and I was actually born again and then baptized at age 19. Well, I was 20 when I was baptized, but saved at age 19. So that's part of my story. That's part of my past. However I identify or don't identify with the Catholic Church today, it started there with a heart's desire of a young husband and wife, my mom and dad, to do what they thought was best, you know?
Which the formative element of that is significant.
It is significant. Because I was telling my mom, and I asked her, you know, why did you do this? You know, my mother is Irish Catholic, you know, deeply ingrained. And I have lovely, wonderful family members, still Catholics. My parents they attend here, but why did you do that? And my mom said it was fear. You know, I really believed the doctrine of the Catholic Church that if I didn't baptize you into the Catholic Church, I didn't know what could or would happen to you eternal. Like that, she had listened to that thinking so long. And I didn't see it in a negative way. She might, you know, but I looked at it thinking there was a promise made to God at that time for my life. You know, 1979. There was a promise that happened, and an act, an embodied practice that is part of my formation. And the trajectory of that formation, you know, has taken a different path. I'm not Catholic, but it's just beautiful to be able to connect those pieces and see what was started with the baptism in 79 was actually came to fruition Mother's Day of 2000. May of 2000 is when I was baptized as a follower of Jesus. So it's kind of bookends, so to speak. But yeah, at the bottom there on page 70, there's those four statements I think are powerful as a follow-up. You've been formed already. You're being formed even now as you read, even now as you listen to us or watch this video. You will be formed in days to come. Put another way, you're becoming a person. So I think what we're asking this whole season is what kind of person are you becoming?
And you can get insight into that based on what's forming you. So.
Yeah. Page 71, I have like most of the page highlighted, but why don't you, I'll defer.
So, I mean, I just underlined like the middle of that first paragraph. Stasis is not on the menu. We are being either transformed into the love and beauty of Jesus or malformed by the entropy of sin and death. Again, I know our culture hates binary things, but it's binary.
It is.
You're either moving towards Jesus or you're moving away from.
But the hardest reality, I think, of that statement, Josh, is that the entropy is against us. Just like death is against us, right? The number of years that we get on Earth, entropy is actually, I mean, when it was second law of thermodynamics, right, is everything goes from order to disorder, right? When I mow my grass, it doesn't stay mowed. Eventually I have to mow it again, right? When we farmed, we had a little hobby farm with berries and fruit trees and a gigantic garden. There was a fence row that went to our neighbor's property, and along that fence row we had honeysuckle. If any of you have had that before, you know that this is a plague. And if you,
why do they name it something so pretty?
Well, it has
like
these beautiful flowers, but it's these horrible thorns on it. And it's a type of, it's a tree that is very valuable to make like fence posts out of. The wood is so hard. But Josh, it is rhizomal, so it goes underneath the grass, and it would go underneath this grass strip and it'd end up in our orchard. And unless we beat this stuff back and cut it down, and we didn't use any poison, we were farming organically. So we took like copper nails and pounded it into the root section, like we cut it down. it just continued to grow into the orchard. Like there was nothing we could do. Sin is the same way. The entirety of our existence, the entropy, the natural energy is actually towards death and decay. And so in order to stop that entropy, we have to interrupt the flow of death, we'll say, and we have to begin enacting regular, meaningful practices and disciplines that slow the entropy and perhaps stop and reverse it in some ways.
Well, the flesh, I mean, go to his trio, the flesh, the devil, and the world, right? There's a centrifugal force that that wants to keep us on this fleshly trajectory.
Yes.
So yeah, it's not just, I think I'll go this way instead.
Right.
You've got a lot of things actively working against us. Just like you said.
Yeah, definitely. Anything else on 70?
Well, you had a whole bunch. So
I did. That second
there.
paragraph there on page 71, writing about hell, C.S. Lewis claimed that all of us are on a trajectory to either life or death. And the farther we follow that trajectory, the more pronounced its effect on us becomes. He said we are either becoming immortal horrors or everlasting splendors. Willard argued that death just seals the trajectory of the road or way we chose in life. It's clear that some people are living in hell now, while others are living in a kind of heaven on earth. We've talked about this with particularly like last stage of life people. You know, we all know these old people, let's say mid to late 80s. Some are just so full of joy and happiness, and they're marked by certain characteristics and even personalities. But then you meet some old people that are to the end of their life, and there's just this darkness. It's the strangest thing, Josh. I was in Florida last week working, and I'm playing pickleball. I'm at a court. There's 12 courts and tons of people playing. And I ended up playing on this court with this one gentleman. He was a young man, and my guess is he was probably at least 10 years younger than me, maybe even younger than that, maybe 15. He was early 30s, maybe 30. His name was Craig. I played several games with this guy, and it was discernible, like in my spirit, just watching him, watching his body language, watching his face. He was so unhappy. Like there was such a heaviness on this guy. Like while we're playing this sport, right, there was such a vacuum of joy. And I'm thinking, this guy, you know, if there isn't some sort of an interjection, some kind of interruption, is a better word, in his life, that trajectory will be honored. You know, and he's going to be living and I don't know what happened in his life. You know, maybe that morning he
go back to all those things that he lived. You know,
I mean, he could have showed up to the court having discovered
patterns, childhood wounds, education. You know, there are a lot of different things that
I wanted to talk with him, but I didn't get a chance to. Like, it's just weird to come up to a stranger and look them in the eyes and say, "Hey, how are you?" Actually?
How come you're so miserable, bro?
Yeah. Well, that's what I felt like saying to him. It's like, "Hey, man, I sense that you're unhappy. What's up? What's going on?" I thought, I'll probably get hit with a pickleball paddle if I
don't know. I'm going to pray that if there's a divine appointment there, that next time you're down in Florida,
I'll be there next week.
You see Craig.
Maybe I'll see him again.
So, Holy Spirit, prepare Craig if JB needs to have a conversation.
Yeah. 72.
Yeah, right up on there. You were just talking about that.
Okay.
So, I mean, all of that about kind of that trajectory.
There it is.
Of elderly people.
Yeah.
Some are the most gracious, happy, grateful, patient, self-giving.
Yeah.
I think of my grandma Jolman. She's like, she's 86 now.
Okay. Ripe old age.
She's great. Yeah. Like she's the last grandparent I have living. And I was like, man, I want to age like grandma. And the same thing, my grandpa Harima, he was up until age 96. I mean, he had dementia, but pleasantly confused. Like that's
not militantly.
That's so it was fascinating to me because when I worked in the hospital, we would often work with patients who had Alzheimer's, dementia type of thing. And at least in that setting, which again, we're not seeing anybody on their best day if you're hanging out in the hospital.
No.
But I mean, you had people that would they'd be angry,
belligerent,
like violent. I mean, I had a guy one time, I wasn't even there to treat him. I walked in because I heard this kind of like
commotion,
ruckus in the room. And I walked in, I'm like, hey, what's going on? Because he was up out of bed alarms going off, which I mean, is probably very disconcerting for like, Like he ripped medical equipment off the wall and was trying to hit me with it. And I was like, whoa.
Violent.
So Grandpa was not that. He was. So I mean, so I look at that. I've got some really good examples of what that looks like.
Yeah.
That's the way I want to go. It's
Yes.
like, let's be pleasant until the end. So.
Becoming a person of joy. Yeah, absolutely.
But his next paragraph, they are this way because they've spent almost a century becoming a person.
Some kind.
Yeah.
Some kind
They've
of person.
been formed.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. What do they say? The best time to plant a tree is 100 years ago. The next best time to plant a tree is right now, today. And the same would be true, listener, viewer. Maybe you're thinking, man, I feel what you guys are saying. I feel what this book is talking about. And I feel that I'm in this rut of grumpiness and or lack of joy and fulfillment in my life. Start having the hard conversations with yourself first. And then maybe that's going to be having hard conversations with others. But make a choice now. Time is not stopping. You have the opportunity today, right now, to make a decision to change. You don't have to be the person that you are. You can become a different person, even against all of those markers and those formative data points. Like you can be someone different, but you got to choose it.
No, that's good.
Yeah. What else?
Where do we want to? I was looking ahead. I'm like, we get into a
thick area. Should we call it?
Section.
Okay.
So I'm like, do we stop this one a little short?
Let's do that. Let's do that, Josh.
Jump into formation defined in episode 10.
We're at the 42-minute mark. So, let's do that.
Come.
Well, listeners, viewers, as always, we just want to encourage you, check out practicingtheway.org. Maybe grab some of their practices for your small group or your life group. I know there are several here at Radiant Life that are doing that. There are several little groups that are going through the book. We can't say enough about Practicing the Way. It's why we are going through this book. Get the book, read the book, buy the book as a gift. My staff this year at my company, this is part of their Christmas gift. Everyone,
spoiler alert.
Oh, yeah, they know. They all know that I send a book every year. Last year was Praying Like Monks, Living Like Fools, Tyler Staton's book. I think the year before that was Ruthless. I can't remember. But this year, my staff is going to be receiving this book. That's how important it is to me. And so we want to encourage you to buy the book, read the book, follow along with us each week as we go through the book together, just kind of digging for some of these nuggets and insights. And then what should they do to help Radiant Reflections get into the hands of more people, Josh?
Like, share, rate, review, subscribe. Click all the little buttons and the bells and the things on the stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, Haley pops that stuff up on the screen like intermittently. It just
like
comes
a little
up.
bell, just like
She actually does. There's this little animation
Yeah.
that pops up. So she does that for your betterment, so that
That's
you can.
fun.
Yeah. So
share it on social media if it's something that's beneficial to you.
Yeah.
Then it might be beneficial to somebody else as well. So.
yeah. Well, God bless you. We'll see you next week with season 9, episode 10.
Season 9?
Or season. I was saying episode 9. Season 4, episode 10. This has been episode 9.
Apparently, there were a lot of lost episodes.
Yes. 5 whole seasons. All right. We'll see you guys next week.